You were betting last night on the Raiders. You were on the wrong side. Don't bet with the public, folks. Bad idea. All right. We get the news that Dejounte Murray is going to be out for the next 2 weeks. And this is a Hawks team right now that doesn't look good. Let's just leave it at that. And it's interesting because I've sort of pointed this out. And I've pointed it out a lot during the very beginning of the season. And while Trae Young's numbers look very similar to what we'd expect them to, if I told you Trae Young was averaging 27 points and 9.5 assists, you'd be like, yep, that's our guy. You wouldn't be wrong. However, this year, I have pointed out how bad his shooting has been. And it has been bad. And I began to wonder and ponder at the beginning part of this year how much longer Trae was going to put up with this, that his shooting was going to be this bad before he went to the coach and basically said, I want the ball back in my hands. Because they brought Dejounte Murray in with the expectation was Trae didn't have to be with the ball in his hands that much. He could be off ball. He could play a little bit more defense. And to a certain extent, some of that has happened. The Hawks are better on defense, 14th, as a matter of fact, overall. Um, and that's better from 26th where they were a year ago. So there is that. But I wondered how Trae was going to react to the fact that if he kept struggling, what was going to happen. Now, unfortunately, we're going to find out because Dejounte Murray's out for the next 2 weeks, and let's see what this offense looks like and everything else. But all this is still coming under the cloud under the fight between Trae Young and Nate McMillan over the rehab of his shoulder. And who knows if there was more going on there. It wouldn't shock me if there was more going on there from the standpoint of it did have something to do with what was going on in the court. Trae wasn't feeling good about his shoulder, just said, screw it, I'm not playing. I, I think there's more. I shouldn't say it. I feel like there could be more than what we are 100% accounting for behind the Trae Young, Nate McMillan feud, momentary feud, we'll call it. But let's watch over the next 2 weeks what happens because I think this will be very telling. I think that we will begin to see exactly what Trae Young without Dejounte Murray looks like. And does it look like last year? Does their defense fall off over the next 2 weeks? Let's see if everything reverts back to where it is. Does Trae Young shooting get better? Maybe. Does the defense pay the price for it? Probably. And John Hollinger, who covers the NBA for The Athletic, took a deep dive into the Hawks, and it was, I'll call it scathing. Listen, it wasn't complimentary. I'll say that much. He sort of maligned what the Hawks have done. Um, he said uh, if Trae Young's going to perk up this season, now would be a good time to start. The Hawks played their past few games in a roster pickle that has left them virtually devoid of NBA forwards. With DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, and Justin Holiday all in the lineup, they've had Bogdan Bogdanovic for only 3 games. Even at full strength, Hunter and Holiday have struggled mightily all year long. And then he says that John Collins is basically a bystander at this point. Hunter has floundered since signing a $90 million extension. The Holiday brother defends, but Justin is shooting 39.4% and Aaron 41%. Jalen Johnson hasn't been ready. Two-way wing Jared Culver defends and plays with energy, but can't shoot either. I mean, he was really laying into the Hawks roster construction and the entire team, and then continues to go on how bad about Trae Young shooting is. It's I've said it's going to be a problem all year long. We're going to find out. And if Trae gets right, and Trae starts to feel better again, you will not see Dejounte Murray come back into the same role. Plain and simple. Why? Because what do we do in the NBA? Cater to stars. Plain and simple. That's what we do. And that's what coaches do. And you're going to find out how quickly how little uh, clout Nick McMillan actually really has. That is where this thing feels like it is headed. That is where it feels like, you know, uh, whatever develops over the next 2 weeks can easily be a harbinger of what the rest of the season is going to look like. And it ain't pretty. It's been a tough week for Trae. It's been a tough week for the Hawks. And they get blown out by the Knicks. They get a game against the Nets tonight. And I would have bet, and I'm just going to take a look real quick here, uh, because I would bet that Trae Young has one of his 35-point nights. My guess is Trae Young looks like he did that night against Sacramento when he had his best shooting game of the year. I'm just kind of curious. I want to see what his point total prop is for the game tonight because it might be a little bit lower after the night that he had. Trae Young's at 31 and a half. I call it a gut feeling. Think he goes over. Think he goes over. Just call it what you want. If he has a normal shooting night like he did, and I keep going back to that night, by the way, um, with the game against Sacramento, because that was Trey's best night of the year overall. Like when you look at the games that he's played and how poorly he's shot overall, remember, this is a guy that's shooting 28.9% from three. That is not good. For a 35% career 3-point shooter, for him to be this low is really, really bad. And when he played that game against Sacramento, that was the night before Thanksgiving. Okay. 11 of 19 from the field, 57.9%, 4 of 7 from three. And that was the most threes he's made in a game all year long, is four. He had 35 that night. So, that's the highest scoring output he's had of the year. I'm sorry, second highest. But still, it's those kind of games that Trey Young has. And let's see where he goes with Dejounte Murray out of the lineup and what this team looks like. I think their defense suffers for it a little bit, but I still think overall they are going to be better off offensively, and Trey may be better off offensively. Want to appreciate and thank you guys for making Locked On Falcons your first listen with the Desmond Ritter news out there. You got to check out Locked On Falcons for your next listen. Check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast.